Hi, this is Rachelle with Scrapcraftastic, and I'm going to be working on setting up my DIY Christmas planner. This is a DIY no-sew planner cover that I made over on my other channel, Journal Life's Journey. If you want to see how I made it, I'll leave a link in the description box below so you can go over there and check it out. I still have to finalize what I'm doing for the closures. These are temporary, but this is what it looks like. And all the supplies that I use to make this are listed in the description box of the video where I made it. So if you want to see how you can make your own binder, you can use this for whatever you want. I'm using it as a Christmas planner. You could do it for December daily, anything like that that you want. It doesn't even have to be for December or Christmas or anything. It would just depend on how you decide to customize it, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So there is the cover. Now I'm going to start working on adding things to it and getting it set up. I have these pulled out just to show how it actually works or looks with inserts and things in it. So these are half letter sheets. Let's put those on. And then this is an actual A5 size pocket. So I'm going to put that in here so you can see what the A5 looks like and what half letter looks like inside. So this is the A5. You see it sticks out a little bit more. It's a little wider, a little shorter. And then this is half letter. And then this is what they look like from the top. Hopefully you can see, get a good idea of what it's going to look like. So, and then there is room for tabs. I wouldn't say a lot of room at the top, but you have a little room at the top for tabs as well. The measurements for the main cover will also be over on the other video. Okay, so that is what we're setting up for, and I'm going with half letter size, of course, which is 5.5 by 8.5. So I had this idea to make an envelope, but I wanted to have a framed front so that I could use vellum or acetate in front of the envelope and then have it framed so that you could see what's actually in the envelope. So I'm going to use vellum on this one, and I may make another one later using some type of acetate. I do have some printable acetate that I could use, so I may play around with that. But for the purposes of this, we are going to use vellum and make the envelope. To do this, I'm using the We Are Memory Keepers envelope punch board and the We Are Memory Keepers frame punch board. I'm trying to actually use my tools, and I thought this was a great way to do it. I'm going to be using paper from this Craft Smart Hot Buy paper pad from Michaels, and this one is from 2019. It is called Classic Vintage. Now I was trying to stay away from vintage for this because I know a lot of planner people don't really like the vintage stuff, but I do. And I wanted to use this particular striped paper because I have the candy canes on the inside here. So I thought this would be good. So I'm going to use the stripe, the candy cane stripes, to make my frame, and then this will make the actual envelope. So to get started, I need to make an envelope, and I'm going to make my envelope to hold a 5.5 by 8.5 card. When you make envelopes using the punch board, it will make the envelope slightly larger than the card size that you need, because it's going to give you room to actually slide that card into the envelope. So I haven't tested to see how much bigger this one will be. We're going to find out together. But I found the card size 5.5 by 8.5 here, and it says I need to cut my paper to 11 by 11, and my first score line is going to be at 4.5. So I'm doing this paper for the envelope, and I'm going to cut it down to, let's move things out of the way, 11 by 11. So I'm just going to use this side as the part that gets cut off. Line that up. 11 by 11. Okay, so that's it for the paper trimmer for now. Then I'm going to go ahead and make the envelope, and I've shown how to do this with the punch board several times in previous videos. If you need more information, just let me know in the comments. Okay, so I'm lining this up with the measurements that I provided here at 4.5. I'm gonna punch and score. Now, since the score is going off the page, this is a little more tricky than usual to line it up. But what I'm doing is lining this score line that I just made up with this little prong that sticks out here. I'm going to go ahead and fold it so that I can see where the line is. I hope that's right. Okay, I'm going to punch and score. I probably should have did this on the wrong side, but let's see how it goes. So this one I can see, oop, that one was off. So 4.5, punch and score. Let's see if we can get this one right. This should line up here. Punch and score. Okay. So now I'm just going to go ahead and fold this. Move the punches out of the way. Make sure that everything is lined up the way that it's supposed to be. Go ahead and burnish my folds. And this does have like a texture to it. It's got a glittered surface, so it's not just a flat cardstock. All right. Now I'm thinking I want to have this open from the top, and I'm hoping that the rings won't interfere with that. So if I have this as my top flap and I punch the holes there, it's not going to interfere. Okay. So now that we've made the envelope, let's see what size it truly is, even though it's designed to fit the 8.5 by 5.5 cards. So it's 5 7/8 inches wide and 8.5 inches in height. So it's only slightly wider and the height is the same. Okay, so since I'm going to use this as my top flap, let me look at this other side. Not that it matters because this is the side you're going to see. I'm going to round the corner of just that top flap. The other ones won't really matter. Let's see, how am I going to do this? Because you won't see them. But since they are going to be folded over like this, I'm going to go ahead and round this one so that I know that's the one that I want to put on the top. So let's go ahead and punch that one. Now normally these envelopes typically open this way, but I want a vertical envelope, so I'm opening it this way. Okay, before I glue that together, we're going to make our frame. So again, I mentioned what the width of this is, but how am I going to do this? I guess because it has an aged look on the edge of the paper, when I cut it, the other two edges are not going to have that aged look. But let's see if I can maybe use some ink to overcome that. I didn't really want to get into using ink, but I'm going to. Okay, so I'm going to line this up on the edge of my paper here and take a pencil and mark where I want to trim. Okay, then I'm done with the envelope punch board, so we can put that away. So now I'm just gonna trim the piece where I drew the line. Just there. And then here. So this is gonna be my frame. And it's gonna go on the front of this. So we got all our pieces cut down to size. Now we need to make the opening for the frame here. My frame edge I'm going to make about 1 inch around. So I need to leave just slightly less than 1 inch around as a frame built into the envelope. The reason why I am adding another piece of paper on top to make the frame is to sturdy the envelope up a little bit. If I were just to cut this opening and then put my vellum in it, it's kind of flimsy. Adding a separate frame to the front gives it a little more stability. Okay, so let's open this up, and I'm going to use my corner miter tool if I can find it. Here it is. So it's supposed to, this is what you use to miter corners when you're making a book. I'm going to use it as a guide to draw my lines because it's slightly smaller than 1 inch. Let me show you. The width of it is a little smaller than 1 inch. Okay. It's not quite a 1/2 inch and it's not quite 1 inch. So I'm going to use this as my guide, and I'm going to place that up against the fold line. Take my pencil and draw. So basically what I'm doing is drawing myself a guide to where I need to cut the rectangular opening of the frame. And I need to make my marks a little darker so I can see them. So here we go. And it doesn't really matter about how dark your lines are here because this is going to be cut off, but you can always go back and erase. So okay, so there we have our frame opening drawn out. Let's move papers out of the way so that we don't have an accident and cut them. I'm going to use my Tim Holtz ruler for this, and I'm using the side with the metal bar. I'm also going to use this craft knife from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to line up just slightly outside of the line that I drew and cut from top to bottom where I drew the lines. Let's go back through just one more time, make sure it went through. Yeah. Okay, so there's one side. I'm going to do the same thing for the other 3 sides. And if you don't have a craft knife, you could always cut this out with scissors. You just kind of be careful. It doesn't have to be exactly straight because, again, it's going to be covered. So, but when you're doing stuff like this, you want it to be as neat as possible. Okay, so I think we are done. Let's close that up. Yep. So we have this that we can use for a journaling card or somewhere else. That's another good reason to cut it out neatly. You can use that scrap piece for something else. So now let's fold this over and see what it looks like. Just checking our work. So if everything is closed, this is how it looks. Now I can go ahead and put the vellum inside. Let's see if this vellum I have is big enough. It's a little small, but I could make it work. Okay, I'm just gonna trim off an end. Let's see. I can trim it off right about here, and that should be able to fit. I just don't want to cut a whole sheet for this. Okay. So let's see how it looks. See how it's gonna fit. It's easier to get a look at it here. And I'm just trying to decide what size tape I need to use. So I'm gonna use an 1/8 of an inch tape on each side and then a 1/4 inch across the top and bottom. So this is 1/8 of an inch score tape. Use my bone folder to make sure that that is down good, because sometimes things don't stick very well to vellum. And I'm going to go ahead and add the 1/4 inch tape to the top and bottom. And I'm getting it as close to the edge as I possibly can. You can use your ruler or scissors to cut this. Since I'm only doing 2 pieces, I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, I usually use a ruler, just like I cut my washi tape with the ruler. I usually use it to cut the score tape too. Okay. And score tape is a brand of double-sided tape. I tend to just call it all score tape. This one is actually Sukwang tape. Okay. So I'm gonna have to be careful with this one because I didn't leave myself a lot of room for error as far as placement. So I'm just lining this up how I want it. And I'm gonna start peeling off the backing of the tape and sticking it down. Hopefully I got this far enough over where the sticky side is not going to show. Yeah. Also, if you burnish your double-sided tape down well, it makes it easier to get the backing off. Struggle a little less with pulling up the whole piece of tape. And I'm holding this as flat as I can so that it doesn't warp and so that I don't have wrinkled or warped insecure places in the vellum. I want it to lay as flat as possible. Just pull that backing out and there we go. Okay, so you can stop here and just seal up your envelope in the back. Leave your top flap or side flap open depending on which way you choose to do it. But I want to go a little step further to make it a little more sturdy because it is a little flimsy. Plus it adds a little something to it. Okay, so I'm going to make a frame to go over this. And maybe one day I can make something that actually opens up. That's a whole other idea. Okay. Let's see. We may do that one next. So I want a 1/2 inch. No, I want an inch frame. So I put the pegs on the marks where it is 1 inch. I also have this long peg on the 1 inch setting. So I can just go ahead and start punching. So I need to punch each of the 4 corners over here with this part of the punch. And this little gadget is available on Amazon. That's where I got mine. I will put a link to it in the description box below, along with the envelope punch board as well. The envelope punch board is a different color now, but it's the same board. Okay, so we got those 4 holes in the corners. Those are the guides to allow me to trim out the rest of the opening of the frame. So I'm going to take this tool. This is the blade. There's a blade here, and then there's a little round guide that goes into the track here so that you can slide it back and forth. So I'm going to put that on the track and just hold it in place till I get my paper in here. And I want my blade to be to start in the opening here. So the openings that we just punched are the guides for the blade. So I'm just going to slide the blade down the track until I get to that other opening, and so it cuts it like so. Then I'm going to do the same thing. This is a little fiddly because this is actually bigger than the punch board, the frame punch board allows, but we're going to work our way around that and just cut that side. Then I'm going to flip it over on the other side and cut the rest. You have to make sure that you have your paper up against the top bar. So there we did, we opened that part of the frame up. I'm gonna go ahead and do the short side again. And do the long side again. I'm gonna have to do it and flip it over. Let's see. I'm trying to go as far as it will let me. So it's like short, just about 1/4 of an inch. Just place that up against there. And there we go, cut the rest of that. So put that back in, and here we go, we have our frame. Now sometimes if it's not quite right, you'll have some little parts that kind of aren't as straight as they could be. This one seems like it came out really nice and straight. So then again, we have a scrap piece that we can use for something else. I am going to take my vintage photo, which is almost dried out, and I'm going to go ahead and ink around. Let me get my mat. I'm going to go ahead and just ink around the other parts of the frame and try to make it match this. It looks like I need the walnut stain because it's darker. So I'm just going to go over it with the vintage photo first. And I'm going to hit the other edges too. And then I'm going to come back and go over it with walnut stain. So this one is a little darker. And that one is the domed brush. Domed sponge, rather. And let's hit it and see what happens. So that one seems like it has a little more black in it. So let me see. Where's my black? I don't want to go overboard, but okay, I think we are good. I'm just going to hit this inside a little bit. Okay, so enough goofing off with the ink. Probably got it all over my hands now. Let's put this away. Now let's see if we can add this frame to our other frame, like so. So this is what it's going to look like on the front and the back, and then this is the top. I think I want this at the bottom, so that's how it's going to go. Okay, so for this part, I was considering, do I want to use a wet glue or the tape? Since I have so much of this double-sided tape that I really need to use, I'm going to use double-sided tape for this, and I'm going to hit the edges. I'm going to use the ruler to cut the tape this time because it's a heavier, thicker, wider tape, and I'm just going to go along all 4 outside edges. Okay, so I'm gonna burnish that tape down really well. If you want, you could come along this edge here with a little bead of glue just to make sure that that's held down. I think I'm gonna do that too. Here's my glue. So I'm just gonna, I don't want to get it too much glue on it because I don't want it to seep over onto the vellum, but this will help hold it down a little bit. Okay, so make sure if your papers have a top and a bottom, which I wouldn't advise for the envelope part, you want to make sure you have everything lined up the way that you want. And I said I was going to do that as the top because I went a little crazy with the ink up there. Making sure everything is lined up. Then I'm going to start peeling off the tape. Hopefully that was in place well. Pull this one off. Press it down. Peel this one off. Again, make sure everything is down flat. That is a little off at the top. Let's see, because I had it down a little too far. So I'm trimming off where I didn't have it lined up quite right at the bottom. And I'm gonna make that the top and then make this the bottom so that it's not as noticeable. And what I'll probably do is come back over it with something else too. Or I could fold it up a little bit more. So since I am switching to using this as the top, I'm going to go ahead and round this point. And I'm going to go ahead now and close the envelope. So it's going to go this way. This is going to be on the inside like that. So I'm going to use wet glue for this. Just run some down this side and glue that down. Then I'm going to run it down the complete side of this flap. And glue that down. Well, before I do, I'm going to add a little bit right here to make sure that gets held down. Okay. That is our envelope. Now you could always come in and put something in the background here if you wanted to. That's something that's a little more than I cared about because I figured whatever I put in here would cover up the inside of the envelope, and it is basically white when it's closed. You can't really see it. So now the thing is to punch the holes. I don't want to use my hole punch for this because I'm not sure that it won't jam. So I'm just going to take one of these pages out and use it as a guide, and then I'm just going to manually punch the holes. So which way do I want this? So it's going to be in the planner like this, so I want my holes on this side. I'm just going to line this up and take my pencil. I draw the whole circle so that I can make sure that I'm lining my punch up exactly to that circle. Okay. So, and I'm going to use the We Are Memory Keepers punch, and I'm going to use the 3/8, what is it? The 3/16 punch, the larger hole. Then I'm just going to take my kneaded eraser. Turn the light down some. Take my kneaded eraser and go back over and remove the pencil marks. Slide that back. And so this is what we've got. And you can also do something as a closure, maybe put a little embellishment there and just glue it on the bottom. And so this flap would slide down in it. I don't think I have any embellishments at hand. So let's put this back in here. And so this is how this would go in the planner or notebook or journal or whatever you're doing. We have a framed vellum window envelope. And you can make these in any size for any notebook or ring bound situation. You could probably even do something to work with it in a traveler's notebook. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that little gray bell so that you'll receive notification each time I upload a new video. Be sure to check the community tab and my stories for updates throughout the week. Also, check us out over at patreon.com/Scrapcraftastic for exclusive content and digital downloads. Visit my other channel, Journal Life's Journey, for craft videos and junk journals. You can find me across social media at Scrapcraftastic. Visit my website and shop at Scrapcraftastic.com. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.